The baby's cry cut through the frozen night like a knife, sharp and desperate, echoing off the concrete walls of the city street. And in that single sound, something inside Ethan Cole broke open in a way it never had before. He had signed billion-dollar deals without blinking, buried his wife with a stone face because his little girl was watching, and taught himself how to survive grief by staying busy. But nothing had prepared him for the moment his daughter's small hand tightened around his coat, and her trembling voice said that the baby out there was freezing. That was the moment when a simple walk home turned into a choice that would change 3 lives forever. Before the story goes any further, if you believe in kindness, second chances, and the quiet power of compassion, take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs hope today, subscribe to the channel for more emotional stories like this, and tell us in the comments where you're watching from. Your support truly means everything. Ethan Cole was known in business magazines as a ruthless, brilliant CEO, the kind of man who built an empire from nothing and never looked back. But behind the glass walls of his penthouse and the polished headlines was a single father barely holding himself together. Since losing his wife to a sudden illness 3 years earlier, his world had narrowed to just one person, his 6-year-old daughter Lily. Every morning he woke up before dawn to pack her lunch, braid her hair with clumsy fingers, and promise himself that no matter how hard the day got, he would always come home for her. Work was easy compared to parenting through grief, and most nights he collapsed into bed wondering if he was doing enough, if he was being enough. That winter night, the city was colder than usual, the kind of cold that seeped through expensive coats and into your bones. Ethan had decided to walk with Lily instead of taking the car, thinking the fresh air might help her sleep better. They passed glowing shop windows and dark alleyways, the contrast between warmth and despair everywhere around them. Lily, with her innocent curiosity, noticed things Ethan had trained himself not to see. Faces curled into coats, hands shaking from cold, lives paused on the sidewalks. He always felt a flicker of guilt, quickly buried under the excuse that he donated enough money already, that he couldn't save everyone. Then Lily stopped walking. She pointed toward a bus stop bench where a woman sat hunched over, wrapped in a thin blanket that barely covered her shoulders. In her arms was a baby, tiny and still, except for weak movements under the fabric. The wind cut through that open space mercilessly, and even from a distance, Ethan could see the baby's lips tinged blue, the mother's face pale with exhaustion and fear. Lily's eyes filled with tears instantly, the kind that came from pure empathy, unfiltered by logic or excuses. She tugged at Ethan's hand, her whole body shaking, insisting that the baby was cold and needed help. Ethan froze, not because he didn't care, but because caring meant stepping into a world he had spent years avoiding. He saw his late wife's face in that mother, remembered holding Lily as a newborn when she wouldn't stop crying, remembered how helpless he had felt, even with doctors and warmth and safety around him. Now here was a woman with nothing but her own body to shield her child from the cold. His instincts screamed to fix it, to solve it, but the reality felt overwhelming. What if it was dangerous? What if it was complicated? What if helping once led to a responsibility he couldn't manage? These thoughts battled inside him while Lily's small fingers clung tighter, grounding him. They approached slowly, the night seeming quieter with every step. The mother looked up with eyes full of fear, shame, and a silent plea she didn't know how to voice. Ethan noticed the raw redness of her hands, the way she rocked the baby constantly as if movement alone could create warmth. Her name was Maria, though he would learn that later, and her story was one of loss, layered upon loss. Escaping an abusive home, losing a low-wage job, shelters filled beyond capacity, and the relentless judgment of people who looked through her as if she didn't exist. She hadn't eaten properly in days, giving what little food she had to her child, praying the night would pass without tragedy. Ethan did what he always did in crisis. He took control. He wrapped his own coat around the baby without hesitation, ignoring the bite of cold against his shirt. Lily pressed closer, offering the scarf she had insisted on wearing, even though it didn't match her outfit. That small act broke Maria completely, tears spilling down her cheeks as she realized someone finally saw her. Ethan called his driver, his voice steadier than he felt, and within minutes, the warmth of the car surrounded them. a sharp contrast to the cruelty of the street they had just left behind. The ride to the hospital felt endless. Ethan watched the baby's chest rise and fall, every breath a fragile victory. Lily refused to sit back, her eyes fixed on the baby as if sheer willpower could keep her alive. Ethan felt a strange fear bloom in his chest, not fear of loss, but fear of hope. Because if the baby survived, if Maria was okay, then walking away afterward would feel impossible. And yet for the first time in years, that fear felt meaningful. Doctors moved quickly, and the sterile brightness of the hospital hallway made everything feel surreal. Ethan signed forms, answered questions, and stayed close, his hand resting on Lily's shoulder the entire time. Maria sat silently, her face drained of color, bracing herself for bad news as she had learned to do. When the doctor finally explained that the baby was suffering from hypothermia, but would recover with proper care, the relief hit like a wave. Maria sobbed openly, clutching her hands together, while Lily leaned into Ethan, exhausted, but smiling through her tears. What followed was not an instant transformation, but a series of small, deliberate choices. Ethan arranged temporary housing without fanfare, insisting on dignity and privacy rather than charity. He connected Maria with legal aid, job training programs, and a counselor who could help her process the trauma she carried. He learned about the cracks in the system that swallowed people whole, and realized how easily his own life could have gone differently with just one bad turn. Lily visited often, bringing drawings and stuffed animals, forming a bond with the baby that felt almost sacred. As weeks turned into months, Maria changed before their eyes. Strength returned to her posture, laughter slowly found its way back into her voice, and confidence replaced the constant fear. She found work at a community center, using her experience to help other struggling mothers navigate resources she once didn't know existed. Ethan watched all of this quietly, humbled by her resilience and by his daughter's unwavering belief that helping was never optional. Ethan himself changed too. Boardroom victories felt smaller now, less satisfying than bedtime stories and community fundraisers. He began using his influence to support shelters and policy reforms, not for publicity, but because he could no longer pretend not to see. Lily learned that even powerful people need compassion to be whole, and that sometimes adults need children to remind them of what matters most. If this story has touched your heart even a little, if it made you pause and feel something real, please take a moment now to like this video, share it with someone who believes in humanity, and leave a comment to let us know it reached you. Your engagement helps keep stories like this alive and spreading hope to others. And before this story ends, we have one special request for you. Please comment the word hope below if you believe one small act of kindness can change a life. On another cold night exactly 1 year later, Ethan, Lily, Maria, and the baby stood together outside a modest apartment building, watching snow fall softly under a streetlight. There were no grand speeches or dramatic gestures, just quiet gratitude and the warmth of being safe. The city was still full of hardship and pain, but in that small circle of light, there was proof that compassion could interrupt even the coldest nights. Sometimes it isn't money, power, or plans that save lives. It's a child's honesty, a parent's courage to listen, and the decision to stop walking past suffering and finally step toward it.